Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a recent amendment that is being demanded by the government of Kerala, and the demand is regarding the amendment of an act that is called as Wildlife Protection Act. So if you try to understand the background, very recently Kerala's Legislative Assembly unanimously has passed a resolution urging the union government to amend certain relevant sections of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now it aims basically, what is the region behind this demand? So basically the Kerala government through this demand want to address the escalating cases of man-animal or human-animal conflict that is being witnessed in the state. So let us try to understand this particular video. What are the sections which Kerala government wants the union government to amend to? Why it is making such demand, and how such kind of amendments can finally address what has become a major crisis in the state, that is the man-animal conflict. Now, the first section that is demanded to be amended is section 11 of the 1972 Act. This section basically regulates the hunting of wild animals. Now, within this section 11, we have a clause that is clause first, subclause A, which says that the chief wildlife warden of the state, that is, if he is satisfied that a wild animal is specified in Schedule 1, as you know, is the most protected category of the animals in India, has become dangerous to human life or disabled or diseased beyond recovery, then chief wildlife warden on case-to-case basis can permit hunting or killing of such animal. So basically here, as per this section, the power has been given to CWLU, that is the chief wildlife warden of the state, to order killing of such a wild animal if it cannot be tranquilized or relocated after capturing. Now what the Kerala is demanding, that we need to have an amendment, and the power that has been granted to the chief wildlife warden should be transferred to or given to the chief conservators of forest instead. Now chief conservator forest talk about in any state of India, we have only one chief wildlife warden, while if you talk about Kerala itself, then there are 5 chief conservator of forest. Now how it will help? So it is believed that if we are able to do such amendment and we are able to transfer the power from chief wildlife warden to chief conservator of forest, in that case the procedure of killing of animals will become much more simplified, and the instances where we have to deal with the wild animals, which are especially such kind of wild animals which are posing a threat to human life, it will also become much more easier to tackle with them, and also it will enable speedy and timely decisions to be taken at a more localized level. So basically, it is one way of saying that from this, currently the chief wildlife warden, who has a centralization power in the context of deciding how and when animals have to be killed, the power will be decentralized at least at a local levels in Kerala. Overall, total, as we have discussed, there are 5 chief conservator of forest in Kerala, each in charge of a different region of the said state. Apart from that, the second demand that Kerala has raised is regarding the wild boar, which has become a nuisance in these times, and the Kerala want wild boar to be declared as a vermin. In this case, Kerala says that as per the section 62 of the Wildlife Protection Act, central government should declare wild boar as a vermin. Now, what is section 62? As per this particular section, the union government can notify any wild animal, again in Schedule 2, which is slightly less protected category of the animals in India, which protects it from hunting basically, as a vermin for the period of time in any particular geographical area, which can be part of state or even in the entire state. Now, what is the reason behind demand of wild boar to be declared as vermin? So, as soon as the union government declares any wild animal as vermin, which especially when it is posing threat to the human lives as well as the agricultural crops, the impact is that any animal, in this case wild boar, would lose its protection from the hunting, and thus the state will be able, and the citizens of the said state, citizens who have grievances, who are facing problems to the attack of these wild animals, they will also be given the power to cull the wild boar population to protect against the menace this species poses to life and livelihood. For example, if we talk about as soon as the animal is declared as a vermin, and for as long as the animal is declared as vermin, any person can kill that animal without invoking the protection or without invoking the penalty that is present in that is given as per the section 62 of the Wildlife Act. Now, this is not the first instance when a state has demanded to declare any wild animal as a vermin, because basically declaration of vermin, as we have discussed, gives a license to kill to these wild animals. So if you look at the previous cases also, As we can see all across India, such as in Uttarakhand, wild boar has already been declared a vermin before. The reason obviously was same. It was causing huge or large scale crop losses. Farmers were migrating because of the loss of crop. Similarly, in Himachal Pradesh, rhesus macaque or monkeys, they were declared as vermin. Region was total 674 reported attacks on human was something that was reported that year, and over 28 lakh relief were disbursed from the state exchequer. Similarly, in the Bihar, nilgai and wild boar, both these animals have been declared as vermin. Reason is same. Government has to sell out almost 40 to 50 lakh rupees as compensation for the crop loss every year. So these are the cases where union government has agreed to the demand of the state and declared these wild animals as vermin. While many states are there which kept waiting, for example, as we can see in the case of Gujarat, then you have Maharashtra, both state wanted nilgai to declare as vermin. Reason is same because first they are having an exponential increase in population and are continuously coming and encroaching upon the in the agricultural and cropping region of the both state Gujarat and Maharashtra. And same thing as we can see is the current case is with the Kerala state also. Now let us try to understand that this entire issue results from a bigger issue or larger issue of what we can refer as human-animal conflict. Now what is human-animal conflict? So obviously, if we talk about in this context specifically to the state of Kerala, Kerala has seen a steady rise in man-animal conflict in the recent years. Attacks from wild animals not only pose a threat to the life, but also have wreaked havoc in the state's agricultural sector. And the issue has now come to a head after radio-collared white elephant strayed into a village, chased people, and also trampled a person to death in the Wayanad region. Wild boars in particular are notorious for, as we have discussed, devastating farmland. Now, declaration of wild boar as vermin was not the last resort. Before also, we've talked about the government of Kerala, when the center previously rejected the demand of Kerala to declare wild boar as a vermin, Kerala in 2022 has empowered the local self-governing bodies to deploy licensed shooter to kill wild boars that raid crops and foray into the human settlement. However, this decision or this step of Kerala was not very successful. The simple reason was the lack of the licensed shooter. Due to this reason, Kerala had no other option but to again demand from the central government to declare it as a vermin. Now, if you look at the man-animal cases, especially from perspective of large animals such as tigers and elephant, we can see that total in the year between 2009 to 2015, almost 2,800 deaths has happened due to the elephant attacks. 98 deaths happened in 3 years, that is between 2014 to 2017, due to the tiger attacks. And overall, it also causes a burden on the exchequer of government because total 15 crore rupees of the money was spent on the conflict mitigation in just 3 years time period. However, to resolve this kind of conflict, several steps have been taken by the government. For example, 584 kilometers of elephant-proof trenches has been dug, especially along the human settlement areas. 1500 kilometers of solar-powered fences, most of which are lying in the southern states of Kerala, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, has been constructed. Apart from that, 35 kilometers of elephant-proof walls have also been constructed in certain areas of the Kerala. 3.5 kilometers of stone pitch trenches and 259 kilometers of boundary walls and 43 kilometers of biofences. Biofences means the fences that is constructed using the trees, plants, which are strong trees and plants which animals generally will not cross. Now, what are the reasons why the human wildlife conflict has been on rise in Kerala as well as the entire India? We can represent this on, we can understand this, explain this on the basis of these certain factors. So first of all, increased area under cultivation, because as the population of India is rising, there is too much pressure being exerted on the forest areas where farmers are foraying into these areas, converting into agricultural land and farmland. And that also has triggered human wildlife interaction. Apart from that, you talk about from perspective of Kerala, 30% of Kerala's region or Kerala's area is basically wild area or forest area. So obviously it is a coastal state. It does not have a lot of what you can say plain areas where population can migrate and settle and practice agriculture. So generally the people have to foray into the forest areas. Second, the cropping pattern is also changing. Third is significant increase in the population of animals, because the government of India has launched many conservation programs. For example, Project Elephant to increase and conserve the population of elephants. We have Project Tiger, we have Project Leopards, and similarly, a lot of other animals are there for whose conservation efforts are being made. So obviously, as the animal population increases and the forest density, forest area is continuously being encroached upon, this automatically will trigger a human wildlife interaction. Third is movement of livestock and humans that is happening in the wildlife habitats, especially during odd hours, is considered to be the main reason for the rise in human wildlife conflict in the incidents. And last, all of these can be associated with a single factor, that there is a habitat depletion and fragmentation that is happening, especially in the case of large animal who need a very large area to migrate, move, gather and find food and water, has caused that is largely caused by the human activities in these areas, is the trigger point or flash point beyond the uh, human wildlife interaction, or what you can say human wildlife conflict. Moreover, invasive alien species have reduced the availability of food and water also, and that is why many times you're seeing that animals or animals such as elephants, tigers and even other such large animals, as they do not have adequate supply of food resources in their own forest area, obviously in search of these food they come into the human settlements. And that is also, we can understand, is monoculture of species such as eucalyptus and acacia has also adversely affected the plant biodiversity, and that in turn has drastically reduced the availability of food resources for the large animals. So what can be the solution, or what can be the way forward we can think to reduce such kind of conflict? So first of all, obviously, is elephant proof trenches and solar power fences that is being constructed all across India, including the state of Kerala, as we can see from this particular picture. Second is, government of India has announced rupees 620 crore of master plan, which will be sanctioned to the forest department, and forest department then will use this money to recommend hanging power fences that will be out of the reach of elephants. Hanging power fences, basically, because here the risk is that if you construct this kind of fences, if anyone want to cross these fences, many times they not understand the risk associated, they get electrocuted, and many times the loss of the life of animals such as elephants, tiger are also being observed here. So rather than having this kind of fences, if you make hanging power fences that will be out of reach of elephants, that will also protect animals from the electrocution and also from shock, and also will prevent animals from entering into the human habitations. Third is eco restoration policy that government has devised recently. It recommends suitable indigenous plants such as wild mango, wild gooseberry, wild jackfruit in the forest to ensure wild animals food security, so that they will be satisfied within the forest region itself, they do not have to run out in the search of food. And last is early warning system. All these things should be supplemented with the early warning system, where the forest department should focus on tracking the movement of the animals, and whenever any large herd of elephants, for example, say, is moving into a certain pocket, certain particular area, obviously the people should be made aware of that, and thus they can prevent going into those areas along with their domestic animals as well. So overall, what we can say in conclusion, that the most widespread method for lessening man-wildlife conflict come in the form of mitigation. And all these points that we have discussed before is nothing but an example of mitigation. Or in one way, simple way, you can say it, finding ways to keep wildlife out of areas with high human population as well as agricultural density. Now, there is a need for both education and awareness among the local population, among the masses, so that they are sensitized about the human-animal conflict. And then mitigation will evolve away from short-term symptom fixes toward long-term sustainable solution to prevent the conflict. So that is all about this particular issue. I hope you understood that what is the rationale behind the demand of state of Kerala in the amendment of Wildlife Protection Act and the associated issue of the man-animal conflict. That is all for this particular video. Thank you.